You're listening to Rikki and Jimmy on Relationships, the show where we uncover the thoughts and behaviors that are sabotaging your relationship and what you can do about it. Jimmy and I are passionate about sharing the ways that imperfect partners like you and I can shift unhealthy relational dynamics and create closeness. So welcome. Drop your defenses and open your heart, eyes, and ears. Let's learn how to be the best partner we can be together.
All right, welcome back. Rikki and I are super excited for this episode. The reason why we're so excited is because today we're going to be talking about healthy versus unhealthy needs. And this is a question that I know I have got a lot, and I often pondered myself, like, what am I allowed to need in a relationship? And if I can be honest with you, I didn't ever think about my needs. And there's probably a lot of you out there that didn't ever think about your needs either. What about you, Rikki?
I absolutely did not consider that I even had needs. So relationships early on were all about how I could find the other person's needs and make those happen for them so that they loved me. I wasn't even part of the equation back then.
Yeah. So the first thing that I needed to do was actually acknowledge that I'm allowed to have needs in this relationship. And if I could talk to the viewers, anyone listening, it's not just okay that you understand that you should have needs. Like, I think it's even deeper than that. It's the fact that it's inevitable. Like, you have needs. There is no should I have needs, or like, everyone has needs. No one doesn't have needs in a relationship. And I think that's just important to acknowledge.
Yeah. What a fantastic point. Because when we're in that space where we're not sure what our needs are, and we might be asking, do I even have needs? Jimmy, you're not wrong. We all have needs. Whether we recognize them or not doesn't mean that they aren't there. There are things that we want when we dream about our ideal relationship, or even just a healthy relationship. Those things exist, whether or not we're just people pleasing ourselves to death or not.
Yeah. Even somebody who says, like, I'll pick on the men for a second. I'll pick on a Frank. And he might get frustrated and be like, yeah, but I'm not as needy as she is, or something like that. There's no such thing as too needy. Now, we can go into unhealthy needs and unhealthy expectations, and we will, but there is no such thing as too needy. There's just too needy for you, and that's okay. Like, it's okay if someone's too needy for you. You do not have to meet everyone's needs. And if someone is saying, well, hey, these are my requirements, like, or these are my expectations, or these are my needs in a relationship, you do not have to meet those. You're under no obligation. But saying, well, you're too needy, or dismissing someone as too needy, that relationship is only going to head towards disconnection, and distance.
Absolutely. I've got a buddy too. He struggles with people pleasing, and he told me, we were talking about needs, and he said, well, the thing that I need is for my partner to be happy. So whatever she wants, that's what's important to me. And I was so bummed out when I heard that, because I'm like, that doesn't leave any room for you as a person. This woman wants to get to know you and what you want, and she can't do that when your only focus is making her happy. So
yeah, that's so true. That reminds me of, I haven't read the book, No More Mr. Nice Guy, but I've heard it.
I liked it.
People seem to like it. So I want to read it, but that reminds me of, like, kind of like the nice guy syndrome. Like, I was a nice guy. And the problem with the nice guy is that they don't really, how do I put this in the nicest way possible? It's not attractive if I was dating someone and they were like, whatever you need, I just want to make you happy. Well, if you're happy, I'm happy. While that seems like it would be nice, I mean, in a marriage, it's nice when both people do that to each other, but it's kind of an unattractive trait, if I could be honest. If someone's just like, oh, I don't have any needs, I don't have it. No. It's kind of like, you want somebody who at least has a foundation of, like, I know what I want in this relationship, and I'm not willing to advocate for my personal needs. That's attractive. It's not attractive when someone's just like, oh, whatever you want, whatever you want.
No, it's very unattractive. And beyond attraction, it's also emotionally unavailable. I want to say that's something that No More Mr. Nice Guy goes into, that if somebody can't see who you are, you're closed off to them, whether you can see that or not.
I love that. What a great way to put that. The only other point I want to make before we jump in is that a relationship demands both of us to care about each other's needs, wants, and desires. If we want it to be mutually fulfilling. If one person just doesn't care about the other person's needs, wants, and desires, just from a logical and rational standpoint, that relationship is not, it's not going to be fulfilling.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. So where should we start?
Should we get to it? Today, I've prepared 5 things that the more anxious kind of clingy partner might think that they need, and then 5 things that the more avoidant distancing partner might think that they need. These are unhealthy needs, I want to say right off the bat, but they are going to be something that if you're on the more anxious or the more avoidant side, when you hear this, it's probably going to make you go, whoa, I definitely need that. What are you talking about, Rikki? And so Jimmy and I are going to debunk these as we go through them and kind of explain why, your brain might tell you you need these things, or they might feel safe to you, but they're actually problematic.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to say is that it's okay that you need these things. Like, we're not telling you, just because we might use the word unhealthy or misplaced or maladaptive need, we're not saying that you're wrong to need this. Like, as an anxious person, and we'll get into it, as an anxious person, you might need more reassurance. As an avoidant person, you might need more independence. We are not saying that you are wrong to need that, but we are saying that it can venture into an unhealthy territory when it starts to negatively affect your relationship. Did I say that right, Rikki?
Well, I've got a little bit of a curveball for you today, because I think all of these things, I think you'll be really surprised at how they might resonate and make you say, I really do need that thing. But then you and I, after all the reading that we've done, we'll be able to poke holes in it pretty quickly, I think.
Yeah. But does that make sense that it's okay to need? It's that it makes sense why you need it. It's not that it's okay that you need it. It makes sense why you need it.
It makes sense why you think you need some of these. How about this?
Correct.
How about that?
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll start. I said, I think this will be really easy once I lay these on you. Just so you guys know, these are a complete surprise to Jimmy. I have not run through them yet, so he's going to be hearing this for the first time with all of you.
I can't wait.
Okay. The first one that the more anxious partner might think that they need in a relationship is constant communication. Now, I'm not just talking about communication. The anxious brain is telling us, oh, I want to be with my partner all the time. I want to talk to them all the time. So needing constant, meaning hourly or maybe even daily. You might have just met somebody and think that you need to talk to them every single day or you're not going to be okay. Or in a long-term relationship, you might think you need hourly check-in texts so that you can know where they're at. And I want to say, this is where we might want to start investigating the need underneath that need. That constant need for communication and connection isn't really something that we need, because that's not really who we want to be. We don't want to be somebody who needs a constant feed of information and text from our partner. But what we really need underneath that might be reassurance that the relationship's okay. There's better ways to go about getting that than constant communication.
I love that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't add anything.
You wouldn't add anything. Okay, cool. And I wonder, I actually didn't have a whole lot written on that one. So if you're listening to this and you're still scratching your head over that one, please do email us. Cause I worry sometimes that I read about this stuff so much that I lose sight of what the very obvious questions are that people would ask about it. But for me, that one seems like kind of a no-brainer. I don't want to be the person who needs. Oh, go ahead.
No. I guess a question would be, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, what if I'm in this new relationship, and they just don't text me or call me or want to hang out as much as I do, and I do feel very insecure about that, and how like I don't understand. I thought we liked each other. Like, why wouldn't we want to talk every day? I think that in those scenarios, this is why it's so important for you to just kind of know yourself. Like, there's a lot of areas where we need to do some inner work and inner healing. Like, but then there's other areas where this is just a preference for you, where it's like, I want my partner to communicate with me often. And if they're not doing that, then it's like, maybe this isn't the person for you. Like but but it's very important that we can get to the point where we can be vulnerable and honest with this new person, because we desperately don't want to do any of this vulnerability, because, well, what if they reject me, or what if they don't want to be with me anymore? But what we have to realize is that that's okay. Like, we want the people that are not for us to move on. So just be direct. Like, hey,
love it.
It seems like we kind of are on a different schedule. I kind of wish that we were texting every day. It doesn't seem like you're there. So like, let's just be honest with each other. Like, do you feel like this relationship is progressing the way you want it to? And they might surprise you. They might say, everything's great on my end. Like, I just didn't know that was really it's just not the type of person I am. And then you can have an honest conversation like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. So things can be great for you, and you just not talk for a couple of days and then reach out. And that doesn't mean anything. And at least you'll get clarity. Like, so.
Yeah. Very well said. What I was gonna say was establish norms. That's a conversation that you have with your partner, where you voice your preference, you ask them their preference, and hopefully they voice it, and then you work as a team to kind of meet in the middle. And I love that you put a note in there about the inner work that we need to do, because I want to caution anybody who, if you worry that your need might be a little on the extreme end, like, oh, I just need hourly text, or I'm not going to feel good about this. Really, that might be something that you could work on with a counselor, even asking yourself, who do I want to be? Do I want to be somebody who needs hourly text? And don't put that into your couple norms. Find the frequency that you feel really good and strong about. Like, I would actually feel really awful if my partner didn't have some sort of contact every single day. And so I look at that objectively, and I think, yes, I like the sound of that. That sounds like a good, healthy thing to me. I'm going to stand by it. Yeah. Okay.
I think it's
cool.
just,
have we talked
I think
that
it's
one
just
to death?
so, yeah. I think the last thing the word we haven't mentioned yet is fear. Like, if you have a constant need for communication, or really what we're going to talk about a lot, these constant need for reassurance, or regardless of if we're talking about an anxious partner or an avoidant partner, the biggest thing that we need to remember is, like, is there a fear underneath this? I mean, what's the fear underneath? I need constant communication. Well, I'm afraid that they're going to reject me, or that they don't like me, or that they don't, or that this relationship isn't so-and-so. And like, those fears are normal and natural, but we also need to be honest with ourselves about them. And maybe that is pointing to a maladaptive strategy of, like, people pleasing or hypervigilance or whatever. Like,
Absolutely.
So it's very important that we understand that fear.
Also, that we have enough going on in our life so that we don't need that person to constantly entertain or communicate with us. That it might point to somebody who is not nurturing their friendships or pursuing their passions. So that's really important to look at too.
I love that. Hit me with the next one when you're ready.
Okay, this one's for the more avoidant distancing partner. So
Frank,
listen up, Frank. Yep. You knew where I was going with that. This need is going to ring true for the avoidant partner, but I need you guys to be careful with this. If you think that you need total emotional autonomy, that might sound like someone saying, your emotions aren't my job to take care of. That might be trouble. For the more avoidant partners, I think it's something that you may have adopted really young, that, nobody's taking care of my emotions, so I'm not going to take care of anyone else's either. And that's kind of a recipe for disaster in a relationship. Our buddy Stan Tatkin, who we had on the podcast, and he was just a complete delight, reminded us that we affect our partners. We do. And because we affect our partners, and there's somebody in our sphere and in our day-to-day, it kind of is our responsibility to make sure that we're not affecting them really badly, or it's our job to care a little bit about how they're doing, and at least have a conversation with them about it, not necessarily change everything that we're doing so that they don't have unpleasant feelings. But we are, as he titled his book, in each other's care. And it is important for us to care about that at least a little bit.
Yeah, I think that unfortunately, if you have that type of personality where it's like nobody took care of my emotions, or you just kind of see emotions as useless, like I hear that from a lot of guys. Like
Yeah.
feelings and emotions are they're just kind of useless. They don't provide any value. I have some really bad news for you. You're probably going to date or marry someone who is emotional. And
Yeah.
you're going to constantly be thinking, why is this person so emotional? Well, when we start thinking that way, we really need to dive a little bit deeper into maybe there's more to this than just they're the problem. They're so emotional. They're like
Yeah.
all my partners have seemed to be too emotional. Like you might want to,
She's crazy.
you know,
That's what you hear when men are talking
yeah,
about women who they think are too emotional.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like this might be something that you need to dive a little bit deeper into, because the truth is, for anyone who's open-minded and listening, and for any Franks listening, you're emotional too. You just don't. You just kind of turned off that part of your brain, and justifiably so, because when you were young or whatever happened to you, you had to turn off those emotions. You couldn't feel anymore because it was just like it was so overwhelming, and nobody was really there to offer any support for you. So it makes sense why you've turned that part off and seen it as useless. However, when you get into a relationship, I mean, Rikki and I have studied this as we enjoy studying this. And what you're going to find is you're going to get in a relationship, and eventually it's going to take you to counseling, or the relationship's going to dissolve. And that you're just going to repeat that pattern over and over until you finally find yourself in counseling. And what they're going to tell you, every good counselor is going to tell you, that relationships can't survive, intimacy can't thrive without vulnerability. And you aren't really comfortable at all with vulnerability and emotions and all that stuff. So I don't say that to shame you or guilt you. I'm just letting you know that we kind of have to get more emotionally attuned to ourselves and our partners if we want a fulfilling relationship with someone.
It's true. For the nerdier folks who are listening, right now I'm reading a really fantastic book called How Emotions Are Made. It's by Lisa Feldman Barrett. And don't get me wrong, it's pretty nerdy. It's pretty deep with the neuroscience, but it's been really fascinating to learn how much of what we do is driven by emotion, whether we recognize it or not. And so if you're romantically with someone, if you're spending any amount of time communicating with them, your emotions and their emotions really are driving the bus. And it is important for us to care about that. Not to completely caretake, but to care about that and have conversations about it.
I wrote down for an unhealthy need. This is sort of similar, but maybe a little bit of a tangent. But I wrote down it's unhealthy to need them to be exactly like you, and that's part of my.
That's one of mine. Yeah,
Oh,
I wrote this.
okay.
Down. Yeah, I can do that one next if you want.
That's part of my problem is I just want my partner to be exactly like me. I mean, why can't you just be like me? And that's something that we both kind of need to be careful on. We can't expect them to think like us, and they didn't go through the same things as us, and they don't handle the same issues the same way we do. So, but it's just like what Rikki said is where it's so important that we move in each other's direction of like, okay, you're not exactly like me, but that is not. I love you and I care about you, and like help me understand your inner world, and that's what's so important.
I love it. I had that under the more anxious partner, but honestly, that could be a worry or a concern of the more avoidant partner too. Wanting our partner to be more like us or even identical to us is easy to do because similarities are easy. We have to make sure that we're not just avoiding the hard stuff by wishing that they received affection exactly like us, that they love the same sports we do. They love to spend their free time the same way.
Yeah.
The good stuff in growing through a healthy relationship is when we kind of learn how to be with somebody even who's very different from us. That really stretches us and helps us grow and makes us greater than the sum of all the parts,
Yeah, I love that. What's the next one?
Well, before I go on to, I wrote down, see if you can stretch yourself to have new experiences and give them the kind of dates and experiences that delight them, but not necessarily you. Yeah, because in those efforts, you might find yourself growing and finding things out about yourself that you didn't realize. which is a great thing about being with somebody who's a little bit different than you.
I love that. I won't go on too much of a tangent, but the first book that I read on this journey was the Love Languages book. And I understand that there's a lot of, some people don't love that book just because of the author being Christian, and that might come with a lot of different strings
or the
attached,
lack of science, or that's why,
Sure.
that's
Or
what bothers me about it, is the lack of science, but it's a wonderful tool as a conversation starter.
But I remember it blew my mind just from a standpoint of, just from this principle of your partner receives love differently than what you probably default giving it. And you default giving it usually in the same way that you like to receive it. Well, I love quality time, so I try to give them all this quality time, and they just don't seem to be. They said they don't even want to spend quality time with me. And the reason they don't want to spend quality time is because you're not loving them. You don't care about their love language. You're just, it's a sort of it's a very selfish way to love someone. Like, I love, physical touch. So I'm just overloading my wife with physical touch. She's like, bro, I don't respond well to your physical touch because you're not filling my you're not actually filling my love tank with words of affirmation or quality time. You're just coming over here wanting physical touch and thinking that you're loving me. But it's like, that's not the way love works. So it really helped me open up and understand a more selfless way to love our partner.
Totally. On that note, one of my partner's main languages is acts of service. I scored incredibly low in that. And so instead of just telling him, deal with it, I am who I am, I said, I'm going to work on stretching myself and seeing if I can learn how to do these things. And I found, to my delight, that becoming better at acts of service actually made me a better friend, because I had a lot of friends who acts of service really resonates with. And when I was suddenly showing up at their house with soup when they were sick, not something that I would have done before because I'm a words and touch person, I was really delighting some of those friends who were going, wow, I feel really loved in the way that I like to be loved, even though, they liked my words and my hugs, but it's like they wanted soup. They wanted me to show them through doing things that I cared about them. So it can make us a better person to work on our partner's love language.
Yeah.
This is a great segue into this next one. For the more avoidant partner, this one makes me sad to say. I'll try not to let this one bring me down too much.
Okay.
A more avoidant partner may expect their partner to give up on things that don't appeal to them. Like, this might sound like, you knew who I was when I met you. So I'm not interested in doing things differently. The thing that you want so badly, that's just not me. So you're just going to have to deal with it. And doesn't that just hurt? So I don't even like saying it. I don't even like saying those words. They make me so sad. But that kind of digging your heels in and disregarding your partner's preferences and desires, it doesn't make you strong. It makes a one-sided relationship.
Would you say that maybe falls also under the unhealthy need of, like, control?
Absolutely. Yes, I would. I would say that.
Yeah. But potentially from their own fear and anxiety and not understanding, the certain things about them. Yeah.
Yeah, that comes from the avoidant partner's fear of enmeshment. It's one of the primary fears for the avoidant partner, and that fear is that they will lose themselves and they'll become too much like their partner. So avoidant partners, or Franks, or Francine, that's the female avoidant, I guess.
Yes.
Whoever's listening where that one resonates.
Plenty. Yeah.
Sure. Lots and lots. Yes. You don't want, I know it's scary to maybe do things that you worry are changing you a little bit, but, we do have to stretch ourselves in that way a little bit. It doesn't mean change who you are, but it does mean be willing to kind of lean into things that are a little weird, a little different, that make your partner happy because you care about their experience of the relationship.
And just to validate Frank, just like we say, fierce independence can be an unhealthy need. It can also be an unhealthy need for the partner that you're dating that's maybe more anxious to want to do things constantly and not have a world outside of you. Like, of course we would say that is also an unhealthy need. So.
Yep. Maybe I'll save this one for last. I will save that one for last. Okay. The fourth anxious need is needing your partner to have the exact same relationship skill level as you. And that
That's never going to happen.
is never going to happen ever. And I've lost track of how many messages I've gotten from people who say, well, I'm just not going to date unless I find somebody who's really good at this stuff like me. Or I don't have any hope for my marriage because I'm really good at this stuff. I'm working on it and he's really bad or she's really bad. You will never find a partner ever who's exactly the same skill level as you in hardly any quality of the relationship, let alone, how good their communication is, how much time they want to spend together, how much sex they might want to have. These things are all different for both people all the time. So
Yeah.
I think the secret sauce is in learning to navigate those differences rather than being bitter about the fact that you might be better at something than your partner or their lack of skill is really bugging you. Learning how to navigate the differences, that's where the magic happens.
I love that. I've heard that from multiple therapists that that I've had the pleasure of like talking to. They're like, my partners and now my current spouse or something, like they will never be on the same. They just don't care about this stuff as much as I do. My wife does not care about this stuff as much as I do. Ricky's now husband, congratulations, doesn't care about this stuff as much as she does. Like that's just part of this game. If you're really passionate about this stuff, I promise you're probably not going to get with someone who's as passionate. However,
Probably
I will
not.
say one caveat is that that does not mean that you should not have certain non-negotiables. I'm not going to date somebody who is emotionally immature and like completely unavailable. That is not, we're not saying you have to date someone who's emotionally unavailable. We're just saying you're probably not going to find someone who is as skilled and or as passionate as you are in this area. That does not mean that you have to date someone. That does not mean you have to throw away your non-negotiables. And all the healthy needs that we're going to talk about in just a minute, you can still apply those. Like I still need someone who can take accountability and all that stuff. So that's perfectly fine.
Wonderful. Yeah, that's wonderful. All right. Scooting on to the more avoidant partner. I didn't phrase. This is a writing failure here. We'll fix it. If you're the more avoidant partner, you may feel like it's a need that you don't have to do something about their pain. And I know that there's better ways for me to word that.
No, I know where you're going.
Okay, cool. The example sentence that I wrote down was, if it doesn't hurt me, I shouldn't have to work on it. Like, or that sounds like a you problem. Oh, I hate that one. Or
I'm sorry you feel that way.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Yeah, that exactly. Excellent. And the fact of the matter is, your partner's pain should move you. It doesn't mean it should move you to be a completely different person or to make sure that they're never feeling unpleasant, but it should move you emotionally to want to have a brainstorm session on how the two of you might make things feel better.
I love that. If I can riff on that for 2 seconds,
because
I have so many things in my head that I'm going to forget them all. But the reason why you probably don't move towards someone's pain is one, because every time I say one, I always forget the second one. So one, you're used to dismissing your own pain. The way you handle your own pain is to just compartmentalize it and just say, there's no point in feeling this because it's not going to lead anywhere good. It's not going to lead anywhere really beneficial. So it's better to just bury it. So that's why you so quickly can so quickly dismiss their pain too. The second part real quick is if you're in an argument and let's just say it's an avoidant and anxious, and the anxious person is like protest behavior and they're getting loud because they don't feel heard and all this stuff. The reason why you might move away from their pain is because you feel like I'm only going to make things worse by talking. And so that's part of the reason why you might just shut down, shut off, just go silent. And that's, I don't remember what the original point was, but that's essentially the point.
Well, I have an addition to your first point. If you're the more avoidant partner and you're like, oh, that's me, I do have trouble feeling like I should do something about my partner's pain. One thing that can kind of help with that is to practice doing things about your own pain. And I know that might sound like a no-brainer to people who are very good at that, but I think that will sound a little tough to the avoidant partners who aren't used to taking care of themselves. It's a great practice to notice when you're uncomfortable, or notice when you need something like, oh, I need a break. You might be the type of person that never gives yourself a break. The more compassion that you can practice showing yourself, it'll actually be a little bit easier to show your partner compassion in the future.
Can I add one as well?
Yeah.
One thing that you can do is simply be, and this when I say the word vulnerability, you're not going to understand. You're like, I don't even know how to do that. But what is to be more vulnerable in how, and it's kind of humility too, in how you don't know how to do things. So like, let's say that she is getting upset and she's getting louder and she feels unheard and she's kind of just like throwing things at you and you have no idea what to say. You can always say, it sounds like this is really important to you. And that means it's important to me because you matter so much to me. However, I do not actually know what to say. I want to help in this scenario. And so I'm totally willing to listen. And I want to know what's going on, but I really struggle with how to say the right things to make you feel better. So if you can help me with that, like I'm here, I'm present, I'm listening, but sometimes I just really struggle with knowing how to fix this, or, maybe I tend to want to fix this, but I don't necessarily want to, I want to listen first and just be vulnerable about it. Just talk about how you don't know how to talk about it. And that is actually very validating to the person. They're like, well, at least they care. Like they're telling me that they want to be engaged.
Absolutely. I can vouch for that. I've used that line during conflict in my own relationship, saying like, I really care about you. I care that this bothers you, but I have no idea how to fix it. Let's sit down together and work on ways to fix it. Hopefully that's really reassuring to the more avoidant partner who feels a big fear of not being able to fix things, being able to. So you don't have to know how to fix it, and you don't have to be good at fixing it. You just have to care that it causes your partner some pain and voice that, and you've already won.
Yeah.
That's a win right there,
Yeah. I care about how my words and actions impacted you. Mm-hmm. Tell me more about what you're feeling. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, let me see. Did I already hit the last point for the anxious partner?
While you're talking, I'm going to throw out some unhealthy needs that I thought of for the anxious partner, which is that they need to resolve conflicts right now. I need
for the anxious partner, right?
Yeah. Like we need to talk about this right now. If we don't talk about this right now, like I can't feel okay. And this kind of goes back to like, going to bed angry and stuff like that. Like it's okay to, if it's late, if you're starting this argument at 10:30 at night, like, we have to have some discernment in that area and recognize our own, that might be an unhealthy need where it's like, this needs to be resolved right now. It's like, sometimes that's actually unhealthy because, one, they're just going to say or do whatever they need to get out of this argument. They're not actually listening to you. It's 11 o'clock at night. They just want to go to bed. So they're just going, yep, I was wrong. Yep, you're right. I'm sorry. And then you don't feel hurt. You're like, you're not even listening to me. You even care? And they're like, no, I just want to sleep. Like, I just want to go to sleep. It's midnight. So we have to be careful with that.
Yeah. And from a science perspective, in that activated state, our prefrontal cortex, the part of our brain that makes decisions and is logical, it's not functioning. And so if you are, it's really not. So if you're feeling any level of anger that's like palatable, that's probably not your best time to have a conversation about how to fix things. So it can actually be really beneficial to kind of slow down, take a pause, or maybe even sleep on it so that two people can come to the situation calm and have good prefrontal cortex exchanges instead of angry, emotional ones that aren't going anywhere.
Big time. Should I throw one more? Or are you ready?
Yeah, I'll you throw one more out and I will be distracted on my screen over here.
Okay. Another one for the anxious partner, because we pick on Frank so much, so I'm picking on somebody else. The need to feel like your partner needs to read your mind. Now, here's my rant on reading minds. I believe we should anticipate our partner's needs, because if they're our partner and we love them, we should be learning about them. I want to learn about my wife. I want to know her preferences. I want to know that she it really irks her when she cooks dinner and I don't do the dishes. I want to know what irks her. I want to know what fills her love tank. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so we should anticipate our partner's needs, but that does not mean that we should expect them to read our minds. And it's our job, and especially if you're an anxious partner, anxious partners tend to see themselves as the more vulnerable and honest and an emotional partner. But what they kind of forget is that they're actually not good at vulnerability, because it's really easy for them to default into, you should already know what I like. It's been in this amount of time. And sometimes their partner will even say, like, tell me what you need to feel loved. And they're like, you should already know that, because they're angry. They're so angry and resentful and bitter, and justifiably so. It's because of your dynamic has been so dysfunctional. So like, you should already know that. And they're like, no, I'm serious. Like, tell me what you need to feel loved. And they won't, because they're not actually comfortable being vulnerable either. Anxious attachment people are actually they have a fear of intimacy, not in the same way that the avoidant does, but there's still a fear there.
The anxious attacher's fear of intimacy is unconscious. We don't realize that we're actually afraid of the thing that we seem to want the most. And we hide behind people pleasing instead of being honest with our partner about the things that we want. Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't read each other's minds, but I'm done. I'm just,
I know where I'm at. I think I found the spot.
Well, let's do it.
This is the last point for the more anxious partner. And of course I want to hear yours if you've got extra ones too. The anxious partner might feel a need for complete transparency. And that I know that the anxious partners are
controversial one.
Yeah, it's controversial, isn't it?
I love it.
It comes from an anxiety about the unknown. You feel like maybe if you know everything there is to know about your partner, you won't make any missteps and there won't be any disconnection. But honestly, the need to know someone completely and 100%, it's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. It's something that, the more you chase, the farther away it gets. It's hard to know anybody completely. Think of your closest relationship in your entire life. It might be with a brother or sister or a parent or a best friend. Do they know you completely? No, there's a lot of stuff that they don't know. And it's an unrealistic thing to want a partner to be able to do as well, or to know about them. A good way to
Can we branch real quick? Oh, sorry.
Please do. Yep.
Well, I was going to say this also coincides with usually anxious partners where they need kind of proof of loyalty, or maybe they're very suspicious or jealous, or they feel like they need, I need to see your phone. I need to go through his or her messages, because then I can feel better about myself. And don't get me wrong, if there has been a large betrayal in the relationship, I'm all for it. There being an agreement where it's like, full transparency, you can look through my phone, but I'm talking about in relationships where there hasn't been a betrayal and you just have massive trust issues, and you're going through their phone secretly and you're justifying it to yourself. I need this to feel safe. I need this to feel, you do need that, but that is an unhealthy, displaced need that's going to really wreck your relationship.
Absolutely. I love that you brought, a lot of relationships have instances of infidelity or big breaches of trust. And in those times, an increase in transparency might be called for, and that's okay.
Oh, it's not might be called for.
It might be.
It's vital.
Okay, I'm being too
vital,
gentle there. It's vital that an increase in transparency happens. But for the more regular situations, right, where nothing has happened and it's just your brain stirring up worries.
Sure. Which happens.
You might want to ask yourself, why do I want to know this? Why do I want to know this thing about him? Him or her? Is this because I'm afraid of something? Do I think that knowing this thing will give me more control over the future? And if the answers to those are yes, then that might be kind of an uncool kind of emotion driving that need that you might want to look closer at. I always ask myself, what's motivating this desire? I am a bit of an oversharer. I think I do pretty well on the podcast here with not doing that. But in my personal life, I find myself saying all sorts of things that I'm like, wow, why did I throw that out there at this person? And it's also good for the anxious folks to ask ourselves, why do I want to share this? What's my motivation here? Sometimes I find myself sharing something in hopes that the other person will share that same secret with me. And that's not good,
Yeah.
right? That's something to check. Sometimes we feel the need to pry for safety, and it's an anxious impulse. We might interpret that as a relationship need, but it's really destructive to feel like total transparency is going to make me feel good and safe, because it doesn't guarantee that, I promise.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Do you want me to add some more? Why don't I add?
Yes, I only have one big thing for the end, so
Okay. Let me add some more, and then you riff on these. Okay.
perfect.
So go real quick, going back to like the resolving the conflicts now. Of course, the other opposite unhealthy need would just be, I don't mean to like pick on avoidance, but avoiding the conflict, avoiding
Yeah.
those hard conversations, just because you don't feel like there's going to be any positivity that's going to come from that, so you just avoid them. But
Yeah.
that never leads to connection either. So you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, I
I've
actually
heard people
just did
say,
a Oh, I
no, go ahead.
actually
Sorry.
just did a post on that today on my Instagram page. It was how do you how to respond when somebody like like their go-to statement is, "Can we just have a nice evening? Like, I don't want to talk about this
Yeah, I
stuff.
saw
Can
that
I?"
post. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and there are a few different ways that we can deal with that. Is this a good time for me to throw those out? I'm just excited about that post. It was a lot of fun
Sure.
to write. If you've got a partner who's constantly saying, "I don't want to talk about this issue," sometimes it's a sign that you are constantly bringing stuff up. Because I know a lot of anxious folks, they don't ever focus on connection and fun. They're only focused on problem solving. Like their biggest safety is to try to look at their relationship, and every time they meet with their partner, solve problems, which actually kind of leads to disconnection, because that pushes people
And
away.
the
So
avoidant
that's
problem, the avoidant person starts to feel like you're only calling them a problem, and nobody
yeah,
wants to
no,
resolve issues from the standpoint of, first of all, avoidant partners really struggle with shame. So
yeah,
they often feel like, I'm bad on the inside. I mean, that's part of one of the reasons why they reject people before they're able to be rejected, is because they feel like, if you really knew the real me, you wouldn't love me anyways. So I'm just going to reject you before you can reject me. So you really have to be careful that you're not just, and I get it that the dynamic is tricky. Like, of course, when somebody avoids hard conversations, we start to we panic on the inside, and of course, we become more hyper vigilant of like, you're not paying attention. You're not like, we have to solve this. We have to do this. Like, don't you care? Of course, that makes sense. But we also have to come at it from knowing that avoidant partners struggle with shame, and if you're constantly labeling them as the problem, they already feel like the problem. They already feel like they're broken on the inside. So they're going to rebel against that. If you're just nitpicking
totally.
and constantly like, you're the problem, you're the problem, you're the problem. They're just like, like, I'm not, they buck against that shame, even though they feel it on the inside. They're like, I'm not broken and flawed. Like, can't you love me for who I am? And that's why they say stuff like that.
Yeah. And how much fun would it be to be in a relationship with someone who's constantly just trying to tell you all the things that you're doing wrong? So
Right.
in that post, I try to encourage people to, one approach might be to say, you know what? You're right. Let's have a fun night tonight. Let's watch a funny movie. Let's cuddle on the couch. But let's talk about that tomorrow. Right. I don't want to abandon myself, but connection really can be kind of an antidote to a partnership that feels disconnected because of somebody who's trying to solve all the problems all the time, 24/7.
And the avoidant partner should respond to that by saying, you know what? I think I lost my cool a little bit there. Like, I don't know why I got triggered. Like, I just kind of felt like you were calling me the problem, and it's just been a long day. But like, I don't want you to feel like I don't care about solving any, I don't want you to think that I don't care about listening to you or solving
Yeah.
issues that come up. So I'm more than happy to initiate that at this time. That really reassures them that like, oh, they still care. It's okay if somebody can't talk right now. It's okay.
Totally.
But
Totally.
it's so important that they are the ones that are saying, I can't talk right now. I don't have the capacity, but I'm more than willing to talk at this time. And
Yes.
and that's when you don't want to fall in the dynamic of, no, we need to resolve this right now. You need to say, that makes sense. Thank you for thank you for reassuring me. And then you know, whatever.
Yeah. Avoidant partners, if your partner is badgering you and they really want to talk about something right now and you cannot handle it, watch how quickly they're soothed by you saying, I will bring this up at 10 a.m. sharp tomorrow. I will be the one to initiate the conversation. Yeah. Can we just cuddle tonight? That. And they'll go, sure. You know, maybe they will, depending on how big the issue is. Yeah. I know that would soothe me.
All right, let me hit you with a couple more before
yes,
your thing.
Please do. Mine are big, so they'll probably finish this section off.
Okay, we have to finish this section because we got to move on to healthy needs.
I know. I know this has been lengthy.
I'll go real quick. All right, this is I don't know how this is a need, but I got to throw it in there for my anxious people looking to save or heal them with your love. Like I need to. This might be a subconscious need where you're just like, I need to save them. I need to help them. Like they're depressed or they're lonely or they're traumatized. I need to save them or heal them.
I'm the only one who can save them.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely. Ugh. Yeah. That's an unhealthy need. Men who tend to think that they need to be a leader, but that actually translates into dominance. Like I'm a leader in this relationship, but that from we really misconstrue, especially as men, what leading means. I mean, if you think about it, any good leader has followers for a reason. They're not subjects of like a king where I command you to follow me. They're a good leader. People want to follow because the leader actually takes the best interest of the people that are following them. Like they have their best interest in mind. So when men get into a relationship, but they just want to lead with dominance, like it's my way or the highway, but I'm a leader. Well, no, you're not a leader. You're just a selfish, arrogant, dominating partner, and nobody actually wants that. You might find partners to be with you, but nobody actually wants to be dominated in that way of my partner doesn't consider my needs.
Yeah. And nobody wants to feel like a project. Whether you think you're a leader who's improving people or you're overly caretaking someone, feeling like you can fix or save them, nobody wants to feel like a broken toy that only one person can put together. That's a terrible feeling.
Needing constant validation to feel that you're valuable. That's a huge issue. If we haven't touched on that, we probably will say it again. But and then my last one, you'll really like this one, is someone who needs like perfectionism in the relationship. Like they don't like it when their partner isn't perfect in some regard, or you know what I mean? So we have to have a lot of grace for our own anxiety around certain OCD, you know, so like lots of people struggle with OCD, but we need to be real careful that we're not taking that out on our partner.
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to the discomfort that comes around accepting that our partner has flaws and they might not be good at something. I have definitely fallen into the trap of believing that I can make every aspect of my relationship perfect. And that's a problematic belief to hold because it's probably not going to happen ever.
All right, hit me with your one.
Okay, this one, I did have this rolled into two, but for time's sake, I'm going to roll it into one. And I would love to hear your thoughts on this one, Jimmy. It's a problematic need, and probably not a need at all, to expect your partner to either be the same as when you met them, or expecting that nobody's going to change or you don't have to change or work in a relationship. So this whole bullet point is about either somebody thinking they want everything to stay the same as the day that you met, or somebody thinking that they need somebody to change, and if it's not happening, right. So I see your eyes. That. You have thoughts on this one. Yeah.
I know I'm very expressive. I can't ever hide it.
That's okay.
That reminds me of Esther Perel. She says like, in every relationship, you're going to essentially have like multiple relationships. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the person that you married is not going to be the same person that you marry or that you're with 7 years later, and then another 7 years later. And that is so true. And we really have to, we can navigate that, you know, like just because they're not the same person, that doesn't mean that necessarily has to impact the core essentials of the relationship. Like, we're not saying that, like, well, they're going to change in regards to, well, now they treat me like crap. Like, no, we're not saying that is, something to be expected. But the only thing that we can know for certain is that they are going to change, and that you're going to change, and that 7 years from now, you're not the same partners that you were 7 years ago. Now, in the context of what you said about, like, about that you don't have to put in the work. Like, I mean, I love, like, I'll go on the tiniest rant ever when it comes to that. And that's that your relationship will always require work, like every step, even when it's running smoothly. It's just like, if you think about going to the gym, you go to the gym and you've achieved whatever goal you wanted to, like, oh, I want to have muscles, or I want to weigh this much, or I want to look like this. Even once you get there, you still have to do work to maintain that, don't you? So, like, even when we get our relationship the way we want it to, it's always going to require some level of effort and work. And when you stop doing that, just like I stopped watering my grass, unfortunately, for a while, and it's all dead now. It's all dead. I'm out there replacing the sod because I did not water my grass, and I didn't do the work to maintain my yard, and now it's all dead, because that's what happens when you don't put in the work anymore.
I love it. Those two metaphors, like, oh, I'm as buff as I want to be, or, oh, my grass is green, I'm good now. No, but we're never done. We're never just, oh, I'm good, I can stop working now. This is, again, like, my example sentences would be, you know who I was when you met me. And then the other one is somebody pointing at a partner saying, you've changed, as if that's a bad thing or not allowed. Change, like Jimmy said, it's inevitable. And I think, like Esther Perel said, right? Change is inevitable, but also growth and needing to work on things is an inevitable part of being in a relationship as well.
I love that.
Okay. Well,
should we move on to healthy needs? Or
yes, let's do. I'm ready. I'm ready for it.
Okay. All right. I'm going to take the lead on this one, and then I'll let you just kind of like riff when you need a riff. You'll let me know.
Okay.
I do want to put out one caveat that I haven't said yet. That one, it's not our job. It's not our partner's job to be our personal need fulfilling machine. Yeah. Like Rikki I know Rikki would agree that we need to be getting our needs met. We all have different needs for support and love and comfort and all this stuff. And our partner should not just be our sole person that we are going to with every single need. They are not your need fulfilling machine. No. So what would you have to say with that?
I think that's way too much to ask of a single person, and it's not a part of a healthy relationship. Having a robust support system, meaning we've got friends, we've got family, we've maybe got a therapist. Even like great self-help books can be part of our support system that give us support and help and comfort when our partner is not available, because that happens. They can't be available to us 24/7. Hey, and also, we ourselves are part of our support system too. So don't forget to remember that you can do a little bit of self-rescuing too in times that you're lonely or bored, or, that can't just be your partner.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to mention was, when it comes to meeting our partner's needs or vice versa, sometimes we get a little bit, confused. So it's not about them meeting your needs like constantly or 100%. There's some weird statistic out there, and I don't want to butcher it, but it's essentially like we miss each other. You might be able to quote this better. Like, we miss each other like 50% of the time. You know what I mean? Like, like when it comes to like emotional bids for connection, and when it comes to just like meeting each other's needs, like we miss each other all the time.
Yeah. I want to say it's 60%, as long as you have a 60% success rate. Like, you can miss 40, that's almost 1 out of 2, right? You can miss 40% of the time and still be a good
Not that
partner.
we're encouraging that, but
no, but it really, but it's true.
You're a human being who has your own life. Like, you're going to miss each other is the point. Yeah. So this isn't about perfection. Certainly it's not about perfection. This is more about intentionality and consistency. Yeah. It's not about perfection or constantly meeting each other's needs.
Right. And with those two things, intentionality and what was the other one? Hit us with it again.
Consistency.
Yes. Intentionality and consistency, you're probably going to get 60. It's really, it's not as hard as it sounds. So
if you're trying, then you're doing great.
Yeah.
It's the people that aren't trying and have never thought about this stuff and
Right.
don't care about thinking about it. They're the ones that are in trouble. If you're actually trying,
Right.
if you get two people that are actually
probably
trying,
got it.
okay, you're
Yeah.
probably got it. I mean, you're both going to screw up. Don't get me wrong. You're going to try and fail, but you're
There's
actually
hope
doing it.
for sure.
So there's hope. When I talk about healthy needs, this is what I want people to, it's hard to know what do I deserve in a relationship. It's hard to know what am I allowed to need. But the way I like to think about it is that, like I said in the very beginning, I need things in my relationship to feel close and connected to my partner. And if you frame it in that way, like, what do I need to feel close and connected? And we're going to go in a little bit, once we talk about the healthy needs, we're going to talk about the opposite of them. Not, I mean, we've already done that in a sense, but if we really, sometimes it's really hard to think about what I need, but I bet you can figure out what doesn't feel good in a relationship.
I see where you're going with that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So
like, and you're saying it's like
listing?
You're saying that's like a good way to help guide you to what your needs are. Okay.
Big time.
Cool.
Big time. Because you know what doesn't feel good. You've had enough relationships to know this does not feel good. And so then, well, what's the opposite of that?
Yes.
And you might find, oh, so I actually need that to feel like close and connected to my partner. And that's not bad. It's good for you to know at least that what you need. Okay.
No, that's brilliant. I'm excited.
So can I list these out? I know we're a little short for time, so I'm just going to, can I just read through some of these? If you want to say something about it, just say stop. I want to comment on that or something.
Okay. I'll raise my hand. How about that? If I'm
Okay. Healthy needs. Okay. In order to feel close and connected to my partner, I need to feel valued and appreciated. I need to feel respected, like we're equals in this relationship. I need to feel safe, physically and emotionally, safe to say no, safe to express my boundaries and think that they'll be honored. I need to be able to communicate about things that are big or small, to be able to navigate even conflict with respect and honoring each other's differences and perspectives by taking turns listening and validating and understanding where they are coming from without dismissing anyone's experience or yelling or name calling. I need a partner who follows through on their word. I need a relationship with mutual accountability. When we mess up, when we hurt each other, we can say, I'm sorry, and take responsibility, not just by saying I'm sorry to end the conversation, but by taking the next step towards understanding how our words and behaviors impacted them, validating their feelings as real, and then exploring what they need going forward and changing behavior in the future. I need to feel desired by my partner. I need affection. I can't feel close to a partner if they never want to touch me. I need us to both accept each other's influence. I need equality when it comes to the domestic labor and the mental load and raising children. What comes to mind when I say those?
And if you need Jimmy to write your wedding vows, you just email us. And that was beautiful, Jimmy. I'm telling you that, I really, every single one of those, I think the only thing that comes to mind is that for people who haven't done any exploring in this department, the department of their own needs, it might be easy to say, I need respect, but then to not know what that looks like, you know?
So true. And that would go back to the previous example where it's like, well, I bet you know what disrespect sounds like, don't you?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, you're right about that. Yes, that's that's palatable. I know. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So what else I wrote down, and then this will spark you to. So I said the reason we break up eventually, the reason we keep fighting, is usually hidden within these unmet needs. You don't feel appreciated or valued. You don't feel respected, and you don't feel like your partner cares. Of course, that's going to exacerbate everything, including conflict, right?
Yeah.
I said, even if you believe it's too needy to need these, just think about the opposite. Would a relationship work if your partner didn't take accountability and rarely, if ever, apologized or cared how their behavior affected you? No. Would intimacy be possible if you didn't feel valued or respected or safe? No. So let's get in the habit of at least admitting that we need certain things in order to feel close and connected to our partners. That's not wrong. That's progress to eventually getting the relationship that works for you.
And
that's what I have to say, Rikki.
And if you could pick your mic up and just drop it for me real quick, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
I think your hack at the beginning where you say, think of the things that aren't working, and that points you toward the things that you do. I think you might find that your list looks an awful lot like that gorgeous piece that you just read. And it can kind of point you toward the actions that will feel good too. You know, I don't want a partner who disrespects me could turn into, I want a partner who respects me. That looks like, okay, what do they do that's disrespectful? they interrupt me. That's a little callback to the early days of our podcast, right? You say, I want a partner who doesn't interrupt me. And that
or dismiss my feelings.
Yeah. Or dismiss my feelings. And that can be a conversation that you guys have together. This is an episode for another day, but you don't want to come to your partner and say, I need you to stop interrupting me. That's what I need, right? That's gonna bring up some defensiveness in them. But if you're sitting together and you're talking about the things that you need in a relationship, talking about the positives together is always a better way to make good things happen. You can say, I feel so loved and respected when I can tell that you're really listening to what I have to say and not just trying to talk over me, which is a skill that Jimmy and I are trying to work on in our podcast. Yeah. I think we're doing better with it.
We've both agreed that we're okay with interrupting, so we don't see it as disrespectful, just for in case anybody's wondering.
Right. But
I love the way you reframed it, because it's so important. It's so important that we're vulnerable. We can say, hey, when this happens, like, it really makes me feel, Rikki doesn't use the word disrespected, but whatever Rikki's nonviolent communication would say instead of disrespected,
right?
It really makes me feel. But you
unheard.
Can also do the opposite. We're unheard. You can yes, thank you for saving me. But you can also do the opposite, and it really makes me feel so valued and cared for when I'm talking about my feelings vulnerably, and you ask me some questions like, hey, what led you to feel that way? Or hey, I don't really know what to say, but I just want you to know that I'm here for you and I care.
Totally. Or leading with a solution too. Like, hey, babe, I've noticed that we interrupt each other a lot, because that might be a couple that does that. And we might say, when we're having those difficult conversations, this might be a little weird, but if I could hold this teddy bear while I'm talking, and then when I'm done, I can pass it to you. That might be a little weird and awkward at first, but maybe that'll help us so that we both feel heard. You never know.
It's so true.
Try it.
It's those little hacks, and it's those little agreements that literally make or break everything. Because you have to be able to navigate these things, especially when tensions get high. This is when it's the largest opportunity to either build trust or break it. When tensions are hot and we start yelling or calling names or rolling our eyes or mocking them, that's really when trust can be broken in that relationship. So it's so important to talk about it before it even happens. Like, hey, how can we navigate this together lovingly and respectfully?
Is this the end, Jimmy? Because I have a quote from my ear doctor.
This is the bonus. I'm letting people go now, and then this is like bonus.
Great. People love. One of these days we're just going to do a whole bonus episode where we just talk about whatever we want. Okay, guys. Right. The quote of the month comes from my ear doctor, who when I told her that I write relationship books for a living, she apparently was one of those boring, secure people, and so is her husband. So for a split second, I was like, I'm not going to get any gems out of this. This is too secure. Right. What do they know? But she said that so many people look at her in her 17-year relationship, marriage, and they say, man, I want what you guys have. And she said that she's like, I wish I could just shout it out to all the people who say that. Just shout it from the mountaintops. We're not perfect. We have conflict. But the thing that makes us really great is that we're good at resolving conflict. That was her words of wisdom. Yeah. She said, it's not that we don't have hard times. We're just good at navigating it when we do. And I thought that was really neat. I love that. Yeah.
Dr. John Gottman echoed the exact same thing. He said, you're going to have conflict. He said the healthy relationships have conflict. The only thing the only thing that matters is that the healthy partners, or the successful partners, or the mutually fulfilling partners, they learned how to repair that conflict. Oh,
yeah. Didn't he also say that there wasn't a difference in frequency either? Like, you could be a very healthy couple and fight more often than another couple. But as long as you're resolving it well.
Just depends on how you, because he said within that fighting, that even that healthy couple that still has a lot of, whatever you would call it, passion or
conflict.
They have a lot of conflict. They rarely, if ever, were contemptuous towards their partner.
I love it.
So when we use the word fighting, mentally, I think of yelling and being contemptuous and like mocking and dismissing and calling names. He's just saying they had a lot of conflict.
Right. Meaning that wasn't that they're not sure how to resolve.
Passionate differences.
Yeah.
But that didn't mean that they were disrespectful or putting each other down. So that was the biggest difference.
Yeah. And if I may add to that, in my own relationship, I feel like when we do have conflict, we come out of it closer. Even if it's really uncomfortable and it was a horrible experience, by the end, we know something a little more about our partner. You know, we know something more about each other that helps us to be better in the future. We're not having the same argument over and over and over again. It's different stuff. And don't get me wrong, stuff pops up, but we tend to be resolving it in ways that feel good.
We also have experienced that. And what we used to do in the past was just, we're both big conflict avoiders.
Both you and Emily.
And that, both Emily and I, And that obviously doesn't usually lead anywhere positive. When you just completely avoid it. And that's something that people don't really realize either, is that a lot of anxious partners avoid conflict as well, because, well, especially if you're a people pleaser, that's the last thing you ever want to do is conflict. Oh God, no, please keep me far away from conflict. The problem is that Matthias, I'll steal this quote from Matthias. He said the relationship that you want is usually in the conflicts that you're avoiding.
That's a beautiful quote.
Yeah. And, so we would avoid conflict. And so we had to shift big time to learning how to actually have conflict together. And man, when you can do it in the right way, it really does lead to closeness and connection, which is weird to think that that you can actually have a fight and it still lead to you guys. But truly,
isn't that great?
You can build trust and intimacy within a fight.
Yeah,
sure.
I think I said early on in our podcast that sometimes I even look forward to the conflicts, because the making up or the learning about each other is so great and connecting and satisfying. I want to
when you see conflict as an opportunity to understand each other.
Yeah, exactly. And let me throw a little hope out for the high conflict partners, because that's a thing. My partner Chris and I think we're both very passionate, and when an issue comes up, we both have a lot to say about it, which made for some pretty epic fights. I'm going to use the word fight in the beginning of our relationship. So our work was not in learning to lean into conflict and talk, but our work was learning to talk more respectfully, which
and
is
take turns.
And take turns.
Turns listening.
And
that's what people that's what people forget. They completely forget about the taking turns, which you're so good at. You always bring up I know it was your parents that used the teddy bear, right?
Yeah, and, conversation bear. Yeah.
And the conversation bear. And that's what people miss. I mean, for the few people that are still listening to the end of this episode, if you can actually have two people that are willing to take turns during conflict and take turns listening. People can take turns, because usually it's like, by the end of the turn, the other person doesn't even really want to talk anymore. But so the avoidant person might think I'm letting her talk or whatever. But this is really about actually taking turns. Like, no. I want to know what you're feeling. When people actually have a resolve, like I'm going to bring my feelings up respectfully and vulnerably, then you shouldn't be scared to bring things up that are important to you, and your partner shouldn't be scared of that either. Like if something's on Emily's heart, I want to know, even if she's frustrated with me. Hey, I was kind of frustrated that you did that. I want to know, because conflict is an opportunity to learn something. And when we do it in the correct way, of course, everyone's echoing this in the listening. They're like, yeah, but my partner doesn't do it in the correct way. Exactly. Well, that's the reason we talk about this stuff so much, is because we know how detrimental that can be to the relationship when one partner doesn't really care about doing this the correct way.
And it takes practice. It's okay to be really bad at it in the beginning. I think both you and I, Jimmy, were probably really terrible at it. And I honestly, I'm not going to give myself an A or even a B. I'm a solid C in that right now.
Solid C.
Still working on it, but
I'm
working on
79.
it all the time.
I'm like almost a B.
But I'm passionate about it. Was it? Consistency and intentionality. That's how I feel about how I work on my conflict. I'm not good at it, but I've got both of those elements, and I get better all the time.
I do, with practice. Yeah. I
Well,
love
cool.
that. Can I say one more thing real quick?
I know. I'm trying to shut us down. Go ahead.
Yeah. No. I'm shutting it down. I promise. Because I know we've taken up enough of your time, but the biggest way to practice this stuff is through weekly at first, but even if it's just like every other week or something like that, check-ins. Your relationship should be able to, if I'm in relationship where I love this person and I care about this person's heart, I should be doing every other week check-ins where we can actually be honest with each other. And it's in those moments where there's not a lot of emotional tension, where we're just sharing information, and our partner can actually, what's the word, like where they're inviting and encouraging us to be honest.
Yeah.
That's where it's so important. Where it's like, hey, Rikki, I want you to be honest with me. I'm inviting your honesty, and it's that moment where we can be vulnerable, and we're a little bit more, our prefrontal cortex is actually still working, where we can be like, okay, like, well, this is scary to admit, but like, I was frustrated with you and you did this. And that's so much better than in the moment we would have gone like, you never do this. You never do this. Like, oh, you make me so angry. You know what I mean? Or I feel like you don't even care. And that is what might have started a fight. But in this moment, during like a check-in, I was going to say mandatory, which is another word that we can use, but also like intentional check-in, where we ask these questions that are so important, like, hey, what's on your heart this week, or how can I support you, or how can I help you feel loved and valued this week? But also, were there any moments that came up that are on your heart where you're kind of like, well, I don't want to bring that up because I don't want to start a fight or something like that? That's when it's so important to actually bring it up. Like, I was frustrated this week. I feel like you just walked past me. I've been doing the dishes every week. You know, I cooked and I did the dishes, and you walked past me so many times, and I just felt like, man, does he even care about me? Like, does he even care? And I know I make everything about the dishes. It's the fastest, the easiest example in my head.
It's the low hanging fruit. We use it a lot.
It's the low hanging fruit. But the point is, it's in those moments where you actually practice expressing things vulnerably, because you have a clear head. You both have a clear head, and you're not triggered. And then the other person is like, oh man, I didn't even know that. And like, thank you for telling me. And that makes sense that you'd be frustrated. To be honest with you, I was like just completely scatterbrained. I was thinking about work, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure, like, I'm doing the dishes this week. Like, I'm not letting you do it. And let's develop a plan together. And that's when it can be so sweet. That's when you're supposed to practice.
I've got a little life hack for the partners who are listening to this episode alone, and they're going, man, my partner's not going to do weekly check-ins with me. Like, I'm working at it on all cylinders on this, and they're not. That I have a little hack for you guys. It's the sneaky check-in. It's the sneaky check-in. They don't even realize that you guys are doing that. You're not sitting down facing each other, rehashing the week. But the sneaky check-in is where you're having a calm or a very happy moment or day with your partner. My partner did this to me. I'm sure he knew exactly what he was doing. And he looked at me during a fun, happy day, and he said, babe, how can I be a better partner for you? And I was just like, what? Like, it just came out of nowhere. And instead of having a weekly sit down where we rehash what went wrong and what went right, it was just a sneaky little moment where he invited me to bring something up that might have been heavy on me, and I didn't even realize I had been carrying one or two things, because they sprang immediately to my mind now that it was a safe time to share it. And I said, well, I do have something that I can think of that I'd like to share with you now that you're inviting me to. And it was great. It was really great.
That's so beautiful. You can save a relationship with just that question. How can I be a better partner? If you have two people that are asking that, and they're willing to, they're humble enough to actually listen, like, hey, I truly want to know how I can be the best partner for you.
Get your phone out right now. You can get your phone out right now and set a reminder in your calendar for like 2 weeks from now, and say, ask my partner, how can I be a better partner for you today? And see what happens.
Yeah. I love that.
That might be a good one to end on.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean,
better than my ear doctor, I guess.
I think that was great.
Okay, cool.
Either way, if you're still listening, we deeply appreciate you. And hopefully you got some value out of this.
We need a name for them, because the emails are still rolling in. You guys don't know what it means to get emails where you're saying, hey, this podcast episode like actually helped my relationship. Like, I go to sleep at night smiling after I read those.
That's all we want. That's all we want is to know that we helped in some capacity. We would probably talk about this even if nobody was listening, because we like this stuff. But but to help someone in any sort of capacity, or two people that are like, what? Yeah, we want that type of relationship. So we're gonna do those things that you talked about.
Yes, and the couples who are listening together. Oh my gosh, you guys, that's incredible. There are couples who they're driving in their car right now, listen,
Yeah.
I'm watching you guys. I can see you driving in your car. I love it. I love hearing that. And
Yes.
that's the work. That's the work. You guys are hitting each other's bids for connection at least 60% of the time. At least 60%.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And we appreciate you. Even though we've never met you, if we met you in real life, you know, we would tell you to your face that we deeply appreciate you. And I know it's a lot to spend to listen to somebody talk for an hour, but we just really, we're so grateful for this.
Totally. Okay. We'll see you guys next time. And thanks for listening.
Tell us what we should talk about, because we don't have anything yet.